Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's In Conversation Masterclass with my brilliant friend, Jacinta Noonan. Jacinta and I have been best buddies for 20 years just about now, which is pretty scary. When Jacinta first came on one of my writing courses in London, in fact, it was the first ever Release the Book Within course, and Jacinta was there writing her book. And you know, before we start this, let me tell you, she did write that book and
Yep.
she did publish that book. So Jacinta might think she's a procrastinator, but she's got some secrets up her sleeve to share with you today about how to beat that nasty monkey that sits on your shoulder and makes you do the washing up instead of doing the writing. So today I'm going to talk to Jacinta and ask her questions about procrastination. Now, Jacinta is a very well trained and experienced life coach, executive coach, company trainer, and also a trained school teacher, and has got a psychology degree. So all that stuff, she knows her onions, this Aussie woman. And so I would like to welcome Jacinta now and ask her to just say hello, and then I'll launch into the questions.
Okay. Hi, everybody. And Jo, thank you for having me. And yes, many years ago, I flew over to London from Amsterdam and went to that very first course ever on writing. So great memories. And yeah, fun to be here today. And I've been putting together what's on procrastination, and it's made me look at myself and my procrastinating behavior. And yeah, I hope I've got lots of interesting and helpful tips to share with everybody.
I know you've got lots of fantastic tips to share.
We
So
shall
tell
see.
us a bit about your business specialisms. I've said a few, but I missed out the ADHD bit as well, which is another of your specialisms. So what do you actually tend to specialize in with your clients?
Oh no, well, that's a difficult question, but my business has been going for 20 years, a bit longer, and I do life coaching, so it can be all sorts of things. But I started specializing in ADHD coaching for adults, not for children, just for adults, and that started in 2014. So it's a particular, area that I work in now. So basically helping people to go from scattered to focused.
Oh, I love that. Scattered to focused. I think that's really, really good. And so many of us suffer from these scattered symptoms now, whether we're actually diagnosed with ADHD or not, because lockdown is keeping us all inside, isn't it? And it's keeping us all flicking through our phones with nothing else to do. So I think we're all being affected. I certainly know that I am more scattered than I ever have been. So you have written a book. You
Yeah.
are writing another one right now. You have a blog, you're keeping up with social media. How has being ADHD yourself affected your writing in a negative way?
Ooh, negative way. So I thought, okay. And I guess we're here to face and have a look at what doesn't work and what can I do to get over it. So the thing that gets in my way with writing is 1,000 ideas at once. So I may sit down to write a blog on this topic, and that will trigger some other ideas. And then I might do some research. Next thing, I will have 10 ideas going on. So my writing brain is doing this, but my other brains are doing all of that. And that really gets in the way, because suddenly you want to go off on tangents all the time and fill in these other books. And after one little writing session, I might have 4 or 5 books scribbled out in my journal where I capture these ideas. So that gets in the way. So after a couple of hours of writing, I may have only done this much of my actual book, but I've got this many ideas. Another thing that gets in the way, that's maybe ADHD thing, I don't know if other people have this, but you get quite negative about yourself, beat yourself up. Those who know me will often say to me, stop beating yourself up, you're far too hard. And that disappointment can spiral into a negative spiral. And then, of course, it makes you procrastinate more the next time you sit down to write. And of course, with ADHD, you may love the idea of writing, but actually sitting down, putting your bum on the seat is often a challenge. And so having little tricks and techniques to actually get yourself started is important, because that gets in my way. And a big thing about ADHD is procrastination, is perfectionism. So what you want to do is be perfect and write that masterpiece, and every sentence has to be a masterpiece. And so that I see now the perfectionism stops me. So now it's just like throw your ideas, your content, get the book written, and then start crafting later. So yeah, that's it, I think. And another thing that happens with all these ideas swirling around, I get overwhelmed and then I get mentally exhausted, and then I have to go and have a sleep. So
that's interesting. So if we could recap with some of those things you had that frankly I think so many of us suffer from. So we had the perfectionism,
yeah,
and the lack of self-esteem,
yeah,
and the too many ideas, and the overwhelm. And I think you had a fifth one in there that I've now
getting
forgotten.
hard to start.
Oh yeah, getting hard to start and having to stop and sit down and do it. So those
Yeah.
are 5 things. I probably suffer from all of those as well. And so it can be extremely difficult. So you start off with one idea and you end up with 5, and then what the hell do you do with all those?
I know, especially if they're really exciting and you've got a block in your writing. You know, sometimes you're really on a roll with your writing, and other times you're kind of not sure how to get through this piece. And so suddenly you want to go off here with a new idea and leave this, or you just get bored with what you're working on because you've been working on it for a couple of months. And it's like, no, focus. Yeah.
So how on earth have you managed to do it? My goodness, it must feel like you're swimming uphill through treacle.
Well, actually, now that you say it, that makes me laugh, because yes, it is a bit like swimming uphill through treacle. Luckily, I like treacle. And as I'm swimming and struggling, because it can be a real struggle, and licking a bit of that sugar, energy, and I was, well, treacle, it actually makes me think about, I need to slow down a little bit, because the ADHD brain can be all over the place and have 1,000 ideas. But by slowing down and focusing on swimming uphill, it slows you down and helps you to focus. But you're right, on a bad day, it's a real struggle. But on a good day, if you can prevent yourself from procrastinating and that monster's not sitting on your shoulder, it's like flying. But what did you ask me? How do I manage to sit down? I think
I haven't actually asked you how to manage to sit down, but that was what I was going to ask you in a minute. My goodness, so you mentioned that you have a block about writing. Many people are blocked about writing. Have you got any idea where yours came from?
Yes, I do. And I've decided not to talk much about that story, but it came from when I was 13. And of course, as a 13-year-old, hormones were pumping, and I was interested in pretty much one thing, and that was the opposite sex. I was interested in boys. And the only thing I loved doing at school was my singing lessons and my writing with my English teachers. So, of course, when I was practicing my English at home on an old typewriter, I was practicing all the best words to describe things, because that had been the lesson of the day. But what was I describing? I was describing boys. Now, I knew nothing about boys. I have no brothers. And I was describing, but I watched a lot of, what was it, the equivalent of Bold and the Beautiful in those days. And so I was writing about boys, and my mother saw it and got totally horrified and thought, oh my goodness, my good little girl of only 13 is up to mischief. So she ripped out my writing from the typewriter and ripped it up, and then went through my diaries and ripped them all up and threw them all out, and threw out all my books that had any suggestion of anything that might be inappropriate. And from then I got a writing block, and that writing block carried me throughout my entire life, even up till now. And of course, through my coaching and the things that I've learned, and through, looking into all this myself, I've learned how to overcome it. But until just say 10 years ago, it was still a huge issue. I couldn't write.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
I wonder how many other people have got blocked from writing because their mothers read their diary. I bet there are lots of people that's happened to.
Yeah, there's all sorts of reasons, and we'll come on to that and further in our conversation about the emotion that causes you to procrastinate and what to do about it. Yeah.
Interesting one. Thank you. I think that's something that many of us can resonate with.
Yeah.
So you help lots of clients with their ADHD and with their procrastination. So what sort of things do you find typically might have triggered their procrastination?
Well, some of the things that trigger that clients struggle with are like not knowing where to start. So it's this great big thing. Where will I start? So you need a plan. you need to make a roadmap for yourself. So when you've got a roadmap, it tells you what to do. The other thing I find, we make it too big. The goal is too big. So if you go and sit down to write a book, and then you get stuck, you need to break things down into biteable chunks all the time, no matter what the goal is. What am I going to do today? I'm going to write one chapter or one anecdote to begin the chapter. So make it small so you know exactly what to do, and that helps you get over the procrastination. And of course, the overwhelm, one original idea may trigger a whole bunch of other ideas. There may be other things you want to do that can get in the way. Of course, we've got the famous fear of success or fear of failure. And there's a lot, I won't go into it right now, but there's lots to do with, if you've got, exactly like me, if you've got a story from the past that got in the way, you need to help yourself overcome that. Perfectionism, as we've mentioned. Another one, some people think, I need to be in the mood. I need to be in the mood before I can write. I'm a writer, I'm an artist. And when I read about famous, I think I read, is it Stephen King, his book, and people like that, and they say, it's a job. You sit down and you write. And you write every day. And some days are good and some days are not so good. But the fact that you write, you'll get there. And this sort of, sweet artist thing is just a procrastination, that naughty monkey on your shoulder getting in the way. And I think, if I'm a bus driver, I don't wake up in the morning and say, well, I don't feel like being a bus driver today. I just get on and do it. And I liked that when I read that. I thought, come on, you're a writer, you're going to get on and write today, whether you feel like it or not. And once you get into it, it starts to happen. What else? Writing takes commitment and discipline. I don't know about the people here today and people that know you, but discipline, it's not the strongest muscle in my body. So if I can go and make a cup of tea or have some chocolate or go and talk to a girlfriend, I'll be there before I think about it. So you need discipline and you need commitment. And if that's a weak muscle, you need to figure out a way of how to strengthen those muscles. Sometimes the topic you're writing about is boring. And I know ADHD clients really struggle with boredom. So we need to work on that. And maybe this will resonate with everyone, the imposter syndrome. Who am I to say this? Everyone said everything there is about this topic. What else have I got to say, Or I need to study this and get a PhD in this before I could possibly publish anything on this. And I think it's important to realize you're enough, and your voice and the way you come at a topic is all that's needed. So there's some of the things. And of course, if you examples like mine, people may have hurts from the past, humiliation at school, teachers that were not good, not encouraged, not honoured in their writing. So some of these things get in the way and therefore keep them procrastinating.
Yeah, they were fantastic answers there, Jacinta. I almost wanted to go back to each of them and unpick them all with you and give some tips from my point of view as a writing coach and mentor. But there are a couple of things I'd like to say that just to add to this that might help, based on what I've read and researched as well. So you mentioned Stephen King. I love Stephen King. That book on writing is really good. I always remember what he says about, he got himself this fantastic office, and it was a sunny, and it was wood lined, and it was painted white, and it was quite beautiful. But actually, it wasn't the office that made him write. He said really all he needed to do was stare at a wall. You don't have to have something out the window. And I remember once when I was really blocked, I had a bad experience with writing a novel where I got some very bad feedback from somebody once, and it completely destroyed me for a year. And this happened not so very long ago. I suppose it was maybe 12 years ago, but it completely destroyed me. And I thought, well, I've got to get back to writing. So I'm going to buy 2 chairs and a special desk and have a special place. It didn't work. It doesn't work. What works is the commitment bit. And I'm going to make a confession now that in 30-something days, I'm going to have a really horrible birthday. And one of my great friends, Robin Pascoe, said to me, I am going to challenge you to write 6 for 60 days until you're 60. And you're going to write every day, and I don't care if you only write a haiku, you're just going to do it. I can't tell you how hard I find it. And I'm not a procrastinating writer. I write all the time.
No,
I
you
think
do.
it's so hard. And I've tried doing it in the morning, and I've tried doing it in the evening, and I've tried doing it in a book, and I've tried doing it on a laptop. It's really hard. But the one thing that got me through this week on a couple of occasions when I just thought I haven't got the time was to say, I can do a haiku. I'll just do a haiku. So that's just 5 syllables, 7 syllables, 5 syllables. That's all I needed to do. And so I did one.
Yeah.
And it only took me 5 minutes, but I did it. And if I'd broken that commitment, it's like with a diet, break it one day and I've broken it forever.
Exactly. So the commitment is really important. And once you commit, and we had this discussion recently, committing and then carry forward and stay with your commitment. But also you mentioned a useful thing of just start and say, I'll just do something, because something is better than nothing. And sometimes you find if you just start writing, so you just did the haiku and then that was it for the day, but that's okay. But sometimes if you just start for 10 minutes, then you'll notice once you're in it, you'll keep going.
Yeah.
And that's important. And just think, if you did something every day, then at the end of the month, you'll have a lot done. But if you do nothing every day and think, oh, I've got to be an hour of writing, or it's got to be 2 hours, or it's not worth it, at the end of the month, you keep procrastinating and you have nothing.
I know, yeah. Interestingly, there's a book by Dorothea Brand called Becoming a Writer that she wrote in, I think, 1954. And she said, if you want to be a writer, you have to commit to just writing for 10 minutes a day. That's all, just 10 minutes a day. Now, come on, if you can't give yourself 10 minutes a day, you don't want to be a writer enough.
Exactly.
10 minutes.
Exactly.
So that's really helped me, just when I just thought 10 minutes is okay, and 10 minutes is a cup of coffee. Come on, I can do it. But I mustn't break it. It's very interesting. There's getting loads of comments coming in here, but we'll look at them all later, because otherwise we'll both lose our places.
I know, and I prepared so well. I didn't procrastinate.
Yeah, you did do it really well. And we've already asked you how procrastination manifests itself in your life. Do you have anything else to add? Because you have already told us quite a bit of that about what you. No, we haven't actually talked about what you do
To procrastinate. Well, shall I tell you a story about Sunday? Girls, I'm sorry, we have a male on the call as well, I beg your pardon. I was so busy on Sunday. I had the busiest day. It began at 9:30 in the morning, Sunday, set up, computer ready. I was going to prepare all my social media posts for Monday. So what did I do? I got itchy, then I needed a tissue, then I ran downstairs for a cup of tea, then I ran upstairs, then I need to go to the loo, then I thought, well, look, it's nearly 12 o'clock, I better go and make some lunch. So then I had lunch, and then I needed a walk, and then I came back upstairs, and then I got overwhelmed again, and then I needed to go and have a little lay down, and suddenly by 2:30, I was ready to scream. I'm like, wow, I'm writing about procrastination, and I'm being the worst procrastinator ever, and look at the time. 9:30 in the morning till 2:30, I did all of that stuff, everything but what I had to do. So I had a little laugh at myself, as I do, and thought, well, that makes good anecdotes for later. And I sat down and started working on my social media. So they're the sort of things I do. It can be anything from, I even go and change my clothes sometimes, because I can't stand what I've got on, just instead of doing my work.
Thank you for your honesty there.
I know. It's like, oh, no, I can't bear this. I have to go. So I think I've got the worst. Oh, yeah, we cleaned the bathroom. I see there, clean the bathroom. When I studied, cleaning toilets were the most important job of the week. Anything to not do essay writing, so on. Yeah, okay, I guess we better move on, because what people really want to know is, what can we do about it?
Yes, what can we do about it? My father always used to have this saying, because my father was a writer too, and he just used to say, park bum on seat. So what do you do to park your bum on that seat and actually start doing something that isn't looking at YouTube videos?
Exactly. Jo, don't tell all my secrets. My YouTube addiction. So what do I do? Tear myself away from my YouTube addiction. You mentioned Stephen King and having that perfect writing space. I realized that sometimes I need to go somewhere else to write. And I have an attic. It's an ugly room. It's not beautifully decorated, but there's a little bed up there, a guest bed. It's cozy. I have lots of books there. I go in there and it's like I go into this cocoon on the top of the, the tower, and I go into this space where it's safe, quiet, focused, and that's my writing room. And it's interesting when I'm in the creative writing, just sort of getting the first draft done, that is a great place to go. So strangely enough, not the other room that should be the perfect room. It wasn't. Some of the other, so I know where do I need to go? Today it may be that upstairs room, it may be the office, I maybe have to write outside in the garden if it's a sunny day. Where do I have to write? And I go with it. Sometimes I find I'm really procrastinating, and it's again, okay, just today we're working on chapter 3. You're just going to write the anecdote and that's it. And just that focusing down with a really sharp goal helps me to get over procrastination because I know how to get into the job. There may be an emotion that's triggered. And sometimes I was thinking, sometimes we're writing stuff and it's very close to us, very emotionally close, and it can trigger an emotion. So being a coach, of course, I'll go, oh, what's happening here? Oh, I feel anxiety. What's the anxiety about? And then I'll kind of coach myself over it. And I find if you try and suppress emotion, it gets worse. So you may as well just say, hello, what have you got to tell me? Let's get through it and let's get writing. The other thing is, if you're really struggling, we said this already, set a timer saying, I'm going to write for 10 minutes and I'll set the timer, and just that timer gets kind of the juices flowing and off I go, because I know at the end of it, I can stop and go and play. But once I'm in it, I keep writing. Jo, one of your things, speed writing. Sometimes you're really struggling and the blank page is staring at you. Grab a pen, piece of paper, and just speed write, or just speed type. And just the act of doing that gets you into it. Another trick, if you're struggling and procrastinating, think, hang on, instead of typing, why don't I grab a pen and paper, old-fashioned handwriting? And one of the girls in my support group, she's been handwriting, and she finds that she is doing reams of writing now because of that. Another thing, some of us are verbal processes. We can talk about it easier than we can put the words on paper or on computer. So I thought I haven't had to do this, but maybe you need to just start recording it first verbally. And then you could put it in one of those transcribing apps, and next thing, voila. And then it's easier, once you've made a start, to keep typing and keep working. You might draw. Maybe you need to draw the storyline or do something creative just to release, whatever's blocking and get into it. So there's some of my tips, and I did see some coming up.
Yeah.
And I've missed them.
Monty says that she does speed writing on her phone, and then she looks back at that later.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Which is quite good. I sometimes make voicemail messages when I'm out, but then I never get around to listening to them again. So that doesn't work for me.
But it kind of does, because the act of recording them and verbalizing in the moment fixes it in your memory.
Yeah, that's true.
So it doesn't, and that's the other thing. So we have all these rules. It doesn't matter, but just doing that made it stronger memory, and then you remembered later it didn't leave you. You didn't have to go back and listen.
Yeah, I think that what can happen, what can really help for me is you talked earlier about breaking something down into very small chunks. I think people can be quite surprised how small that chunk might be, and they make their chunks too big. So when I'm helping somebody to write a book, I ask them to start off with a table of contents. And in most books, a table of contents is one page, but it's a real macro level roadmap. And so then they know what each chapter is going to be about. And then the next thing they could do is mind map each of those chapters, which just means that it captures the ideas. And if you keep those mind maps close by you and other ideas come to you, you just jot them down on the mind map, but you're actually moving forward. You're not writing the chapters per se, but you're planning, and planning is so important. And then the next level is to write an outline of a chapter. So you don't write the words, you just write what the subheadings might be. First I'll tell the Donna story, then I'll talk about how you make a cake, then I'll do the this, then I'll do the that. And then you've got a much easier roadmap. And then I would say, okay, then I can go to my outline, and I would just write perhaps one section of the outline, which might
Exactly.
only be a paragraph. But
Exactly.
having that plan is so helpful, because what it does for me is it gets it out of my head.
Exactly. It's great. And in the meantime, your subconscious mind is busy with it as well and starting to think things and add things. And again, some days you're more inspired than others. So maybe you come to your plan, you're not that inspired, but there's something kind of practical you can write about, that you just go to your plan, and you don't have to write a book from start to finish. You can come in at different bits because you've got that plan and all those little biteable chunks organized. So absolutely spot on.
Yeah, I think one thing that can also slow you down and make you procrastinate is that a lot of people, I find, they write chapter 1 and then they perfect chapter 1 and then they keep perfecting chapter 1, but they never get on to chapter 2. I
Exactly.
always say it's much better to do a shitty first draft and know it's going to be shitty. So do a shitty first draft of chapter 1, a shitty first draft of chapter 2, get to the end of the book knowing you've done a shitty first draft of the whole book and it's not very good, but it's there, and then go back and polish, rather than keep going back to the beginning again and not getting to the end. And
Exactly. Yeah, 100%.
yeah, because it's too easy to try and get chapter 1 perfect, and you'll never get chapter 1 perfect. You might get chapter 1 perfect, but it's much easier to keep going and stay in the flow. And then when these ideas come to you, rather than thinking, oh my God, I've got to go back and put that in chapter 1, I would never do that, because that would slow me down. I'd just make a note to say, add this to chapter 1.
Exactly.
And I wouldn't down and go back down a rabbit hole of chapter 1 again.
Yeah, exactly. And I was terrible at doing that and getting stuck like that. And I would even get stuck on, the opening sentences, and I'd find I'm just taking far too long. What am I doing? It's like, get your ideas out, just get them on paper, get the whole content written. And then, I see it as a sculptor, pottery, you start to massage and sculpt and play and fix it as you go through the second round. And don't get stuck on halfway on that first chapter. And eventually you sort of give up because you're just so frustrated and bored and stuck. So next, Jo.
So I want to now ask you about, okay, so we all have these issues and we all could do with some help. Who can you have to help you in your support team? Who can help you to stop procrastinating about things and actually get some stuff done and written and finished?
Well, your question was, do we need a support group, or should we work alone, or whatever? And I was thinking, some people work really well alone, and some of us need the accountability of other people. So I think a support team can be good, but you've mentioned something where your confidence was shattered by the wrong feedback, yeah, so you've got to make sure they're the right supportive people who know how to be part of a mastermind group. And that can be really, really helpful. I have a group that you know about, you got us started, and there's 4 of us, and we've been doing it, for maybe 9 months now. We meet every Wednesday, and it's a very supportive, caring group that gives feedback. We share our ideas, but also we can put ideas on the table. Look, I'm thinking about moving on to this section. Does this sound okay? How does this come across? So you're helping, just hearing what others think about your work helps to craft that, and helps to overcome the procrastination monster, because of course every Wednesday I've got to be ready for Wednesday, and it gives my week purpose. Otherwise, I think someone might have even said this in the comments, writing becomes a topic that's always put on the back burner, because it's not, with our busy lives, maybe we're not professional writers, so it's not our job. So it's always something we do later and we never get around to it. So this way, having a group that you meet up regularly just keeps this commitment and the focus, the routine, some of the things I meant to say earlier, this routine, it keeps it on your radar and keeps you moving forward. So I find, and I need that accountability that working in a group, like having a support group or having an accountability buddy, provides me. My best advice sometimes, and you said something earlier as well, look, never think one side, they do it, so that's how you do it. If you're a person that needs people to motivate you, and get you into action, then you need people. So make that happen, whether it's a support group or a accountability buddy that you check in with a couple of times a week. Find what works for you and stick to it. Don't think it should be something else. And there are a few people who really work better alone and are intrinsically motivated. Maybe they don't need people. So see what works for you. Yeah. And for me, that human connection really fires me up, and that sharing and supporting and the enjoyment of watching it. You know, we're watching it, all of us grow with our books at the moment, and it's really fun as
Yeah.
well.
It's interesting that there's the support group idea, because I know that can be incredibly helpful. So one person that some of us know here, Doreen Cumberford, she belongs to a group called Shut Up and Write, and
Yes,
they meet up things all over the world, I think, and basically they meet, they put themselves on mute, and they write.
exactly. Well, we've done that sometimes. We've turned up and no one's had time to do any writing, but we literally do that, and it feels so good. You can see each other typing away, and for some reason it really works. It's that human connection, it's the commitment together, and then you share at the end, and then you're so excited that it's easy to start writing the next day.
Yeah, I can see that. But what about if your block's not the writing per se? But this is certainly something I suffer from. But the boring stuff, the scheduling of the blogs, the scheduling of the social media posts. What do you do about that?
Oh, that's an easy one. You outsource.
Yeah.
Don't if you really find that things like that, because I didn't understand your question, I thought differently about that. But if you find all that boring stuff, that's not, yeah, and you're procrastinating on that, okay. I always say, if it's a really big issue, just outsource. Do not put your energy and time into doing stuff that's just going to keep you getting nowhere. Outsource it. And therefore, if it is something you should do and you can do, or you can't afford to outsource, then you have to make it, well, get over your procrastination monkey, which make it fun. Give yourself time limits, set timers, make it, pump up the music. It's all about changing mindset. And I think I've got some of those things coming up as we talk further.
Yeah,
But
so you make yourself accountable. I mean, I know that for me, I can never be bothered to do the social media posting, but I don't really mind writing it. So I find it a lot easier to write everything for a month, put it all in one document, and then give it to somebody else to post.
exactly. And there's lots of students, university students, who'd be happy to do stuff like that. They can do it really fast, and they don't charge so much, and it's great experience for them as well, and they know about all this stuff. So definitely, and do it in blocks and chunks like that.
Yeah. Okay, so what's the next question? So procrastination comes from the Latin and means putting things off until tomorrow. Do you think it's particularly bad in ADHDers, or do we all suffer from it?
Well, I think we all suffer from it. There might be a few people that are not procrastinators, but you've got your normal procrastinators and your chronic procrastinators. And I think the ADHD group might fit into the chronic procrastinators. It's definitely something that we do. And it's because, again, problems getting started, getting distracted, because distraction's a huge one. Oh, and ADHDers love that last minute propulsion of, oh my God, the deadline's tomorrow, I've got to do it. And that's because it kicks in your adrenaline and your dopamine and things like that. So changing your brain chemistry gets you going. So that's why that's what chronic procrastinators do, and it's not really a sustainable way of doing it. What else? Hang on, I wanted to say something. Procrastination is about being motivated to do something, and sometimes we forget that negative emotions, like, say, fear or anger, revulsion or shame or some distress, that's a really powerful demotivator, let's say. And it stands to reason that if you feel pain, you're not going to put your hand in the fire, are you? You're going to move your hand away from it. And I realized recently I've got this thing about being embarrassed or humiliated. So what if I write something, I publish it, and then everyone says it's stupid or dumb? And then those so you can imagine you're going to write something, and in the back of your mind, you've got this emotion, yeah, but what if? And that emotion then makes you procrastinate, run downstairs and get a cup of tea, or go and clean the toilet, or what have you. So, yeah, it's important to recognize the emotion. And some of us, so you question the ones that are mildly procrastinators, they would feel that those emotions may be less. We know from ADHDs, they feel emotion extremely strongly, and it can, really flood the system. We call it emotional flooding. So whereas someone else might just be mildly annoyed or irritated, the ADHD feels it big. And so when it hurts, you're going to run away, you're going to procrastinate. So that's why I always say, come back to what is going on with me, and what do I need to get myself into a good place so I'm not procrastinating or running away. When you're feeling safe and good again, then you can get into your work. Yeah.
So does this, my next question was, what do you know about the brain and procrastination? So have you just answered some of that, or have you got more?
Oh no, not at all. And I've got like tons more things I haven't even mentioned. So I love this part. The brain. So we have the emotional self and we have the rational self. And we kind of think we're rational beings, but we're actually not. Emotional self is like the elephant, and the rational self is the rider on the top. And that's why when you find yourself avoiding or procrastinating, or you should do that, and rationally you know how to do it, and you can try all these time management tools, and rationally they should work, but it's not the rational that's the problem, it's the emotional. So we've got your prefrontal cortex, your executive function area. That's where you do all your planning and your scheduling, and the rational self. But then you've got the limbic system and all the emotions that flood our system and get in the way. So when it comes to procrastination, we've got to recognize that is part of who we are as animals, and not ignore that, and then work with that. So that's always fun to look at the brain and the whole cascade of dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, adrenaline, and so forth. And I play with that in myself. So if I feel I'm not so motivated and I don't want to do it, it's like, I need a shot of dopamine right now. What do I need to do to get that pumping? Or maybe, the oxytocin, I don't feel safe. I'm really not feeling so comfortable and I'm insecure. Well, maybe I need to do something, give myself a pretend hug, or do something that's going to trigger oxytocin that makes us feel loved and safe. So when you know about how the brain works and how we work, say, from an animal level, then you can artificially do some things to trigger these kind of, like, we call it dopamine. Take a dose of dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, or endorphin. And there's been things out on the internet of how to trigger those emotions, those neurochemicals.
My goodness.
Yep. So that's the fun part. And there's this fight between the emotional self and the rational self. And it's that fight going on all the time as well that we're struggling with when we procrastinate. So, and I think I said before as well, when there's a negative emotion, the desire is to pull away from it. And that's natural. That comes from our, keeping a survival instinct. So that's what we're dealing with when we're procrastinating. So don't be hard on yourselves. Be loving, caring, and figure out what's going on. And then you'll get insight into what you need to overcome it.
My goodness, it only goes to show how much information you have in your head. I'm surprised there's not enough room to get all your writing done. My goodness gracious me. You know so much. I can see why people love having you as their coach. If people want to have you as their coach, what's your website?
It's Platform B, but you say spell it with BE.com.
Oh, platformb.com.
Can I finish with my 5 Noonan nuggets?
You certainly can. I just wanted to make sure I didn't forget to
ask that other part's not in
my list.
But my
top 5 procrastination issues.
5 Noonan nuggets.
Noonan nuggets, yes.
Noonan nuggets for everyone today. Please, everyone, find your writing space. Doesn't matter where it is, just find it. Say where you feel safe, private, quiet, if you need quiet, low distractions, and just write. Make writing part of your life. The best way to get over procrastination is make it a habit. It's something you do, you commit to it, and just do it every day, even if it's one sentence every day. The other thing that's really important, and I lost this with the book I'm currently working on. I had a crisis. I'm not going to do it. I don't know. Why am I doing this? And I went back to, what is my why? Why did I want to write this book? Why do I want to say this? Why does this have to be said in the world? And wow, I remember this day, I just was ready to throw it in. I connected with why. I went into my little writing bubble mentally, and I just started writing, because this is what I want to say. This is why I want to share these words with the world. And that's all that matters in this moment. What happens once the book's published, we'll deal with that later. But connect with your why. The other thing, and I may have seen it in one of the comments earlier, kids, commitments, partners, volunteer work, our boss snagging at us or whatever, cleaning the house, all these things can get in the way. And I think a lot of us do not give ourselves permission to write. I find writing, when I let myself do it, I love it. It's almost too lovely, too enjoyable. It's like, oh my goodness, I couldn't possibly do that. It doesn't feel like work when I'm in it. So I want to say, everyone, give yourself permission to write, claim your time, do it. And one last point, Noonan Nugget 5, believe in yourself. Take on the identity, I am a writer. Go and look at yourself in the mirror after this and stare into your own eyes and say, I am a writer. I write. Believe in yourself, do it, and before you know it, the skills will develop if they're not there already. It'll be much easier to overcome that procrastination monster, because that monkey will be with you. It will want to do it. If you keep saying, I am a writer, he'll be there with you. So, boom, boom.
Great tips, actually, Jacinta. You know, I actually know two people who, when they wanted to write, got themselves a business card made that just said that they were a writer on it, to just make themselves believe it.
So important.
I love the thing about your why. Be clear, because surely if we all go back to our why, that maybe is all we need. If we go back to our why.
Because we sometimes, in the struggle of the writing and the not being perfect, and these sentences that sound stupid, and I've lost my way. You know how confused I got. I've got so many ideas for my book. I don't know what to leave in, what to leave out. I need a good anecdote. Now I've got 10 good anecdotes and I have to choose one. I can't do this. And then when I sat down and said, but why did I want to start? And all of a sudden, all the energy comes together and you know. And it's kind of like this calming anchor point. So, and when you forget, just draw it back. Why did I want to start?
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jacinta. Do you know what's been happening? Well, you probably do, but lots of people have been commenting, and they haven't been asking questions so much as giving other ideas and more wonderful things to share. There is so much in the chat, so I'm going to start at the beginning.
Are you able to I'm thinking of time as well. Are you able to save the chat? Because maybe we can write up a document and send it to everyone as well. Because
I will be sending a document, because I have an intern at the moment called Charlie. I don't know if he's on the call, and he's going to be writing up all the top tips from this in a document which I will send out on my blog. If you don't subscribe to my blog, it's on joparfitt.com, and it's called The Monthly Inspirer. It will all be on there, not immediately, but within the next few weeks. So it will be there. This whole video will end up on YouTube and on my website as well, so you won't miss it. And we'll be making some little video snippets that we'll be sending out on social media. So people do not have to miss it, but do sign up to my blog, and then you will make sure that you don't miss it. So let's just see what we've got here that's worth saying. Somebody said that they often can't start because they know hyperfocus kicks in and then they can't stop.
Yes. We know about that.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. I wish I could do. That's one thing I don't do enough of.
Yeah, you do hyperfocus. You often get stuck into something. Like writing a song and playing your guitar, you can get stuck in that.
Oh yeah. And someone earlier said deadlines. I forgot to mention that. Absolutely, deadlines.
good one.
I need tight, fixed deadlines, like today. If you say, be here on this time, on this date, or have it finished on this time and this date, I will have it done, because and again, I will do it for you, but I won't do it for myself. So if I have to write for your website, there's Claire who's here, I'm going to write something for her blog or her newsletter, and she's given me a deadline, I will do it for Claire. But if I gave myself the deadline, I'd let that go. So I'm motivated by others. Someone's just asking, it's never too old to be tested for ADHD. And if anyone wants to come and talk to me about that, please get in touch. I'm happy to discuss anything privately after our call.
If you want to send a private message to Jacinta now in the chat, do. This chat will be saved, by the way, and if anybody wants it later, I can send it to you. I'm very pleased that Pauline has written me a haiku, on way to 60, putting pen to paper now, lifelong commitment. Thank you, Paulina. And Monty's reminded me that she was going to write 50 chapters for her 50th, and that's how we met. I had forgotten that. Sam likes the idea of 10 minutes a day. It is incredibly helpful. Yes, and Paulina said that she finds other people seem to think your time's not important because it's not a real job, so they interrupt. Yeah.
And it's up to us we have to be disciplined and strict. And that comes back to when you believe in yourself and say, I'm busy, I'm working right now. It's the same as any other work.
I know, it is hard, I know. Maggie says that sometimes she enjoys the planning too much. I know, but at least for me, Maggie, when I do the planning, it's out of my head and on the page and I can move on, which is quite good. Monty belongs to a critique group. It is very helpful, I know, absolutely. And then I really love something somebody said later, the book, Rachel Smith. What was that? I've lost it now. Rachel Smith says, oh, Monty said, Rachel Smith says that if you have 4 months to do something, it'll take you 4 months. But if you have 1 week, it will take you a week.
That is so true. You've done that to me, Jo.
It's really good, really good.
You forced me to just send me something. I need it by tomorrow. I'm like, and then it's there by tomorrow. It's amazing what you can do when you commit to a time frame.
Well, Yvonne asks, what's the difference between ADHD and just procrastinating?
Oh, ADHD is all of this and more, and it's all much worse. And if I start talking now, I'll talk for another hour. So I'm trying not to. I don't know, Jo, can you say something quickly?
Can I say something more about that?
The difference between
ADHD is about procrastination, but it's also about it can often be about the hyperfocus, the distractibility.
So yeah, it's impulsivity, it's a lack of focus, it's a number of things, and so procrastination is just one part of it. I guess that's a good way of saying it.
Definitely, when perfectionism, I mean, they're definitely connected, aren't they? But it is just in relief if it's ADHD. Monty says she always shuts the door. Yes, absolutely. So I've reached the end, I think, of all these things that people have asked. Does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask in the chat? And then we'll just have a couple of questions from the chat, and then I'll turn the recording off and we can all just have a little chat.
Someone's saying hyperfocus, flow. What's the difference between focus and flow? I haven't thought about that.
What is the difference between focus and flow? That's interesting.
Is there a difference? Maybe sometimes they're the same.
Feels easier, maybe.
Maybe flow is that lovely, when they talk about being in the flow. I was actually in the flow the other night. I had 3 hours of work. I was in bliss. I was just having the best time ever. And when I kind of came out of it, I'm like, oh, I have literally just done 3 hours of work and it was wonderful. And focus, I can focus in the same way, but maybe it's got a slightly different feeling to it.
I think flowing you're enjoying, focus you're not necessarily enjoying.
Yeah, you can enjoy your focus, but not necessarily. Because I don't enjoy my bookkeeping, but I can focus on that and get it done.
Yeah.
Good question. Yeah.
Yeah, really good question. Okay, I am going to now stop the recording. Oh, we got a question from Natalia. Does rewriting and revising count as writing, even if you're not necessarily advancing writing, but just fine tuning? I'm going to answer that. Yes.
I'm going to answer it as well. Yes, and it is advancing the writing. Fine tuning
Yes,
is still
writing
part
is
of.
just writing.
There's going to be an end product, and anything you do is still working.
Planning is writing, having a support group is writing, doing speed writing to limber up is writing, thinking about it is writing, reading a book on the same subject is writing, going for a walk in order to muse about your characters or fantasize about them if you're writing a novel. It's happened to me once. That is also writing. It's all writing. It's all part of writing. It is not just about putting the words on the page. You've got to give yourself permission to know that that is all part of writing. And so is forcing yourself to go to the Costa del Sol on holiday because you're going to be writing about it for an article. That's writing.
Exactly. And one more thing on that, which reminds me, sometimes procrastinating is a good thing. Have you ever noticed that if you're stuck or you go and do something practical where I call it, like you're doing doing the dishes or ironing, and suddenly what you were working on has time to bubble around and ponder and think, and next thing you suddenly start, you're still busy with it while your brain is doing something boring. But back here, your creative self is, and so that's why sometimes, and you said go for a walk, sometimes that is writing. And it's okay, that kind of procrastination is okay and a legitimate part of.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good point there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now just close, and then, but I won't stop. We'll all still stay here. So I'm just going to do the close for the end of the video. So thank you so much, Jacinta, for coming today. Anybody who wants to find Jacinta, you can find her at Platform B, that's be.com, also at jacintanoonan.com. You'll find her on Facebook. Just go to me, you'll find her amongst my friends. We're always commenting on each other's posts. And so thank you so much. You've given us so much wisdom today. My goodness, my brain is spinning and I already know half this stuff. So thank you so much. And I urge you all to get in touch with Jacinta, follow the stuff she's doing, and continue the conversation with her. Thank you so much, Jacinta. But don't go away, everybody, because we'll continue the chat.
And thank you, Jo, for having me. It's been a pleasure. Thanks, everybody.